So hello friends, this is from Chambers again, and today we will be continuing our discussion on the general pharmacology, and finally we will be ending the discussion on pharmacokinetics today, and also we'll be starting the pharmacodynamics in the same video. So I suggest to watch the previous videos so that you can understand the concepts much better. So today no, last video we have ended on the kinetics, the first order, the zero order, and we have clearly understood how things are working, how clearance is remaining constant, how half-life is remaining constant in first order kinetics, that is the linear kinetics, because we saw that the constant percentage is being eliminated in the first order kinetics. Okay, so today before going to the pharmacodynamics, I want to teach you the steady state, something about steady state and some Platy principles and loading doses. Okay, so let us share the screen. So if I talk about the concept of half-life, what half-life was telling me, it tells me that how much time I require to reduce myself to 50% of what I am. So if I have 100 mg of drug and it gets halved, so its half is 50 mg in, for example, 2 hours. So this 2 hour becomes its half-life. It becomes its half-life. Okay. But if you are doing more metabolism, then yesterday we said, the half-life will be affected, isn't it? We actually, the formula for half-life is T half is equal to 0.693 into VD divided by clearance. So we are taking two parameters in it. We are taking volume of distribution and clearance. Okay. Okay. But remember one thing, there is one wrong concept which the people learn. It is not the other thing that I'm going to say is that my half-life will only determine the dosing interval I have to do. My half-life will only decide the dosing interval. Okay. It is not that what dose of a drug you will give. It's telling us the dosing interval. So it will determine the dosing interval. So for example, I tell you this drug is having a half-life of, I have a drug A and it is having a half-life of 2 hours. Okay. And I have a drug B, it is having a half-life of 4 hours. Okay. So what will happen? I will be taking the drug A frequently. I'll be taking the drug A frequently, isn't it? I'll be taking it frequently. Okay. Now this is having a longer half-life than this. So I will be taking it less frequently. So A drug will be taken frequently. Okay. But there is a concept. That concept is known as steady state. The concept is known as steady state. What is the concept of steady state basically? If we, literal meaning of steady state. If you are the rate of administration is equal to rate of elimination, isn't it? Rate of administration becomes is equal to rate of elimination, or rate of infusion becomes equal to rate of elimination, isn't it? And we saw that elimination can be done by, how can you do an elimination? Yeah, who can tell us how to eliminate a drug? Excretion, kidney, isn't it? Biotransformation, isn't it? You have two ways to elimination. What if you want to terminate the action of a drug? You can terminate it by two ways. Either you can biotransform. What was that biotransformation that we have learned? That we were changing the things to inactive metabolites. That's where it will terminate its action. Or you can excrete. And we said major excretion is happening through the kidney. Major. We said major. I'm not saying bile is also there. Okay. So rate of infusion is equal to rate of elimination is the place when we call that we have reached the steady state. Ideally, it is said, it is clinically we have seen that since it is dependent on the T half, then I would be taking T halves in the concept of steady state. So I require at least 5 half-lives clinically. Please remember the word clinically. What about mathematically, sir? Mathematically, they have seen at least 7 half-lives. This word is always not taught to you. They only keep you telling 5 half-lives, 5 half-lives. So what I if I show you that mathematically we are able to get 7 half-lives and more than seven even. So that means I have two concepts of steady state. That means I have two concepts of steady state. One is a mathematical steady state, another is a clinical steady state, isn't it? Isn't it, my dears? Isn't it? Shouldn't I classify it if I have two steady states? One is a mathematical steady state, another is the clinical steady states. These things are kept hidden. We should know at least. So mathematical steady state tells us that to reach a mathematical steady state, you will take greater than 7 half-lives. But in clinical steady state, it is said that no, we are ending it on five T halves. So it takes 5 T halves to reach a clinical steady state. And you are saying, sir, steady state is dependent on rate of infusion or rate of administration. That means dose rate. So that means steady state will depend on dose rate. Steady state will depend on the dose rate, isn't it? Are you able to understand? Is there any doubt? So how you are telling, sir, how you are telling that we have 5 T halves? I will show you. Remember how to approach this concept, how you have to think. You have to think like this. Let me give an example. You know, once you cross each half-life, you are actually reaching your target. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you are reaching your target. With each half-life, you are actually going to reach the target. Target is your steady state. See how. In one half-life, you are reaching how much? 50%. Isn't it? Can I take like this? I can think in many ways. It depends on your way how you think. In 2 half-lives, you will be reaching how much? 75%. In 3 half-lives, you will be reaching how much? 80, how much? Around, I think, 87.5%. And in 4 or 5 half-lives, you will be reaching what? Clinical steady state. Are we able to understand? So after each half-life, you are actually reaching halfway to your goal, isn't it? You are reaching halfway to your goal. Now you have to think like this. So in one half-life, you are reaching 50%. In 2 half-lives, you are reaching 75%. If in 3 half-lives, you are reaching 87.5%. And 4 to 5 half-lives, you are reaching the clinical steady state. You are reaching the clinical steady state. Okay? You are reaching the clinical steady state. Now what people keep doing, there are people in this world, who start thinking logically, more logic without the knowledge of pharmacology. Our patients, what they do is, in case they miss a dose, they miss a dose, they will take 2 doses at the same time. What some people do is, if they forget the morning's dose, they will eat it with the afternoon's dose. What will happen is, uh, fortunately, if the drug is having a narrow, sorry, if the drug is having, a therapeutic index, a wide therapeutic index, then it's okay. It's okay. No, not okay at least, but yeah, you can at least, when some calmness will be there, sir. Okay, it was having a wide therapeutic index, which I will be telling you. But if I have a drug which is having a narrow therapeutic window, what will happen? When they take 2 medicines at a time, what will happen? They are actually, what they are doing? They are going to the toxic line. They are going in the toxic dose line, isn't it? They are going into the toxic levels, isn't it? So this should not be done. So this was just a care for you. One concept is there that is called dose strategies. Dose strategies. Dose strategies, what do you mean by that is we have a mostly we use if we have a drug which is having long T half. If a drug is having a long T half or if a drug is having a large volume of distribution, what we do is we apply a strategy that is called a two dose strategy. Two dose strategy. What we do in this two dose strategy is we give two doses. One is a loading dose. We have already discussed this in the volume of distribution video. You can watch this concept in that video. I'm just correlating and integrating these two things now. So loading dose and maintenance dose. So what is happening in the loading dose? Loading dose, L means, what does L mean? L means large. L means large. Okay. So if I have a drug, please listen again. If I have a drug which is having a higher volume of distribution or which is having a high T half, I will be giving the loading dose. Loading dose is always a large dose. It is always a large dose. Always a large dose. Why I am doing this? Because if I first give a large dose, then it will be easy for me to reach the steady state, isn't it? I will reach the steady state very much fast because I'm infusing such a big amount at the first site that I can later on give small doses. That is called the maintenance dose. So I will be maintaining this strategy. So maintenance dose will be a maintaining my strategy, two dose strategy, isn't it? First, I give a high dose, that is the loading dose, so that I load the tissues, and then I keep the plasma concentration, which maintained in with the help of some smaller doses. Okay, so maintenance dose is always smaller. Okay, so what this loading dose is, what the meaning is, just to load the tissues, because I taught you that they have their mouths open tissues, isn't it, for the drugs, so they eat all the drug. So we first load them, close their mouths. I taught you, we close their mouths, and finally we are working with the blood circulation. Okay, now see my dears, so what is the formula of loading dose? Loading dose is equal to Vd into the target plasma concentration which you have. Okay, target plasma concentration. Okay, what about the maintenance dose? Maintenance dose is always dependent on the clearance, because I was maintaining it and my clearance will be affecting it. So what about my clearance is, so remember, it will depend on my clearance. Maintenance dose depends on the clearance. So maintenance dose, what is the maintenance dose? MD is equal to clearance into target plasma concentration. What is the relation between the two? Remember another formula. So there is one concept. One concept is what is TDM. I will not discuss it in much detail. I will be just saying one or two lines about it. TDM means therapeutic drug monitoring. Therapeutic drug monitoring tells me how much dose I have to adjust in at a particular plasma concentration. Okay, so yeah, let us come back. So what we're saying about this TDM. So this TDM, the therapeutic drug monitoring, we are using, for the drugs which is having, variations in pharmacokinetics. So the drugs which have variation in the pharmacokinetics, excretion, metabolism, those drugs I will be using as TDM. Okay, so which drugs do we use the TDM? What do we use the TDM? By the way, what is that TDM? What is the concept? The best example I can give you is the antihypertensive drug. Antihypertensive drugs. Now I tell you that a patient is coming to me with a blood pressure of let's say 160 by 160 is the systolic. Okay. Now according to the JNC guidelines, or according to the guidelines following the no antihypertensive drugs, we have to prescribe my target blood pressure should come to around 120, isn't it? My target blood pressure should come around 120. Okay. Now I give the patient, for example, I tell him to come after 2 weeks. I tell him to come after 2 weeks. Now, before 2 weeks, I had checked the blood pressure, it was 160. Today, the patient is coming after 2 weeks. I am checking the blood pressure. I will be seeing if a relative lowering is happening, like 150 or 140. This blood pressure will guide my dose, isn't it? Will guide me to dose, isn't it? So this blood pressure is showing me that how much I have to adjust, isn't it? Okay. So can I easily measure the effect of my treatment? Can I easily measure the effect of my treatment in TDM? I can see. So is it an indicator? So is the BP an indicator of my antihypertensive therapy? Yes, it is an indicator of my antihypertensive therapy. Meaning thereby, I don't need TDM for these drugs. I don't need TDM for what drugs? Antihypertensive drugs. It's not used. No, it's not used like this. But I'm saying it's a concept that we are using. We are actually checking about what how the things are. Is it compliance? Are we following the compliance? Pharmacodynamics. Pharmacodynamics. We said D for dynamics. Drug on the body means not drug on the body, means effect of the drug on the body. Okay, so they can be, there are many mechanisms that a drug may be using. What it is going to be going to do with our body. Let us show like this. So a drug can be doing agonism. Okay, what effects can a drug do? A drug can be an agonist. A drug can be an antagonist or blocker, you can say. Okay, a drug can be a partial agonist, isn't it? We'll be reading about them in a short interval. Okay, so we have to understand some concepts. We have to understand some concepts about the nature, the things, how they are working together. Like I will tell you. For example, let us read some definitions first. There is a concept that we should understand. Now I told you this is a drug. This drug will come to its receptors. This is a cell. This cell is having receptors, isn't it? Cell is having receptors for specific hormones or specific proteins. So drug will choose that receptor. Once, if a drug is coming to the receptor, many things can happen. So for understanding that, we have to understand some terms. Okay, one concept is there, that is affinity. What is affinity? Affinity means A for affinity, A for ability. A for affinity, A for ability means what is the drug able? Is the drug competent? In what sense? Binding. Able to combine with the receptor. Able to bind with the receptor. Is the drug able to bind with the receptor? Now, if a drug is not able to bind with the receptor, it will not bind to the receptor. Okay. So that means if I tell you that I have an agonist, who is an agonist first? An agonist is a drug. An agonist is a drug which will bind to the receptor. Once it binds to the receptor, it should produce a response. Once it binds to the receptor, it should produce a response. What is an antagonist? An antagonist, what is an antagonist going to do? It is a drug. First you should write it's a drug which will bind to the receptor. It will bind to the receptor but will not be associated with any response. So is it only acting as a blocker or not? It is just coming to the receptor. If I draw a receptor here, my antagonist is coming here. It is just coming here and binding, not doing anything. Not doing anything. Because receptor should have an that intrinsic activity. So it's not doing, the I is 0. So it is just acting as a blocker. So he is himself not doing anything, but he is not letting the agonist also to do anything. So we call in short antagonist a blocker also, rather name. Okay. So it is not allowing, it is preventing the agonist to bind to the receptor. Okay. Now I will tell you the concept of affinity. So affinity is the ability of a drug to bind to receptor. If an agonist is able to activate a receptor, if an agonist is able to activate a receptor, we call this is the intrinsic activity. This is the intrinsic activity. This is the intrinsic activity. So this intrinsic activity is basically the property of agonist. Okay. Now intrinsic activity is having a value from -1 to 0. Sorry, -1 to +1. -1 to +1 is the value. So 0 is in between. Now tell me one thing. Can I divide on the basis of this intrinsic activity? Can I divide the drugs based on this? So how to divide, sir? We can say a drug can be an agonist, a drug can be an antagonist, a drug can be a partial agonist, a drug can be an inverse agonist. Sir, what is an agonist? Agonist has the capacity to bind to the receptor and it will activate the receptor at up to its maximum limit, that is maximally. So can I say it is having the highest value? So IA becomes +1 for an agonist. Now antagonist, it binds to the receptor, but it is actually blocking it. It is not doing anything. So can I write intrinsic activity is equal to 0? Because this is not letting the agonist to bind here. It is already occupied by the blocker. He has occupied the sites. That means it will decrease the action of the agonist also. Itself, it is not doing anything. Itself, he is not doing anything, only attaching and not doing anything. But once I give an agonist, it will stimulate a, there is an intrinsic pathway and an extrinsic pathway. Intracellular mechanisms will start with the agonist. But blocker is not doing anything. It is just coming at the site and blocking, just blocking. It's just blocking, not doing any activity. That means intrinsic activity should be is equal to 0, isn't it? Now, there was another concept, by the way, I forgot to tell you, that was potency. There was affinity, there was potency. Sir, what is potency? Simple answer. Potency tells me how much dose do I need to produce the action. How much dose do I need to produce the response? So that means how much amount of drug I have to give to produce a response. That means if I have a drug A and a drug B, I require 10 mg of A to produce a response and 50 mg of B to produce a response. Which drug is potent? Which drug will be potent? A or B? Very nice answer. So A will be potent because at less doses I can produce a response. But at B we require 50 mg to produce a response. That means A will be more potent. A will be more potent. That is the concept behind potency. So the amount of drug I need to produce a response will tell me its potency. So drugs which are able to produce response at lower doses will be more potent, and other drugs like B who I need in higher amount to produce the response will be less potent. So if you see a graph like this and you see two drugs, that is the Droz response curve, DRC curve. If you see a DRC curve in the exam and you see two curves, for example, like this, I have two drugs A and B. So who is able to produce less amount? A, because I told you an example, 10 mg. So remember how there is a trick. The more the curve is on the left side, the more potent it is, because less dose, isn't it? Less dose, the dose is increasing in this way. So this is the trick. Directly in the exam, once you see a curve which is more towards the left, your left, not patient's left, then that drug is more potent. The more the drug is on the left side, the more potent it is. Simple concept. Now, sir, there is another concept where confused. Some people say it's efficacy. Sir, what is efficacy? It is basically efficacy means maximum effect which I can do. The maximum effect which I can do. Okay, the maximum effect a drug can produce is efficacy. Maximum effect a drug can produce is called its efficacy. Okay, that means efficacy should be checked at the top. Maximum response should be made at the top like this. So on the graph in the exam, efficacy should be checked here. Who is at the top? This. So A drug, for example, is having the highest efficacy, greater than B, then greater than C, isn't it? So greater than B, greater than C. It's so easy concept. Okay. So how to check now? Remember potency, left, right, potency, left, right, efficacy, up, down, efficacy, up, down, directly on the graph, up, efficacy. No, E is like this. E is like this, isn't it? Efficacy is like this, and P is like this. P is nothing having anything in top. E is something having some, some stairs like this, isn't it? E is having something like stairs. You have to come down and down. So peak efficacy, peak efficacy. Okay. I hope it is clear. Efficacy, the concept of efficacy. So in our clinical practice, what the patient is concerned about efficacy or potency. Patient is always concerned about the efficacy. Patient is concerned about the efficacy. Now we have said that agonist is having an intrinsic activity of +1 and antagonist is having an intrinsic activity of 0. So then what is a partial agonist? The confusing concept. I will let you understand this by a simple example. Okay. Now see, partial agonists have a character. That principle is called principle of duality. Principle of duality. What is the principle of duality basically? Partial agonist, if I take for example, this is the heart of a patient. Okay. And I take a drug that is pindolol. I take a drug that is pindolol. Okay. Now you know heart has a receptor that is known as beta 1 receptors. Heart is everywhere filled with beta receptors, beta 1 receptors. Now what is happening once I put this pindolol, when I give this pindolol, it will partially stimulate the heart. Partially stimulate the heart. But if I put epinephrine, if I put epinephrine, the heart will be rapidly stimulated. The heart will rapidly stimulated. Now what I do is in the second experiment, I put pindolol plus epinephrine. I put pindolol and epinephrine. Now these receptors will have competition. The receptors, there will be a competitive, there will be a competition for this receptor, isn't it? So that means who will win? Who will win? Question is who will win? Dose. Who will win? Dose. It will depend on the dose. Okay. It will depend between the dose. So was pindolol a blocker or not? Was pindolol actually partially stimulating the heart or not? Okay. Isn't it? So what is the concept behind these two? Is in the presence of epinephrine, it is showing me the blocking effect. In the presence of epinephrine, I will repeat again, pindolol is a partial agonist at beta 1. Once you put agonist, beta 1 agonist, that is adrenaline or epinephrine or noradrenaline, it will become a blocker. So initially it was working when it was alone, but once you put a blocker, it became no. Once you put another agonist, it became a blocker. Okay, I have another example for you. If I go into the endocrinology, there is a drug that is tamoxifen. What is tamoxifen? It is a selective estrogen receptor modulator, SERM. We give it in which females? Postmenopausal women. Females. Postmenopausal. We give it in postmenopausal females. What is the function? Estrogen activity I have to increase. Now, if a female is having an estrogen positive breast carcinoma, if a female is having an estrogen positive breast carcinoma, then it will compete with the breast receptors and it will become a blocker. It will become a blocker, remember. So if I am giving it in a post-menopausal woman, it is having the increased estrogen activity. But once I give it in the estrogen positive breast carcinoma, the female, in that female, it will compete with those, on the breast receptors. It will compete and will act as a blocker. So can I say tamoxifen? Can I say tamoxifen has a stimulatory effect on one organ and it has a blocking activity on other organs? Isn't it? Is it okay? Yeah, it is okay. So did you understood the partial agonism? Well, then, sir, what is an inverse agonism? So tell me now, what is the partial agonism? What number will you give it to? Will it give you zero? Yeah, sir, I will give it 0, and I can give it +1 also. So it's in between. Intrinsic activity is between 0 and +1. Now, if I talk about inverse agonism or inverse agonist, it's the fourth one. Inverse agonist is that type of a drug which will go to the receptor, goes to the receptor and produces opposite effect. Okay, so its IA will be negative. Best example is beta carbolene. We have benzodiazepine receptors, chloride channel. So beta carbolene is an inverse agonist. It's an inverse agonist. Okay, I hope you have understood this topic. We have understood the agonism, we have understood the antagonism, we have understood the partial agonism, we have understood the inverse agonism. So there should be no doubt. Inverse, this agonism is +1, antagonism is intrinsic activity 0, partial agonism is 0, 2, +1, and inverse agonism is -1 intrinsic activity. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I will be talking about the receptors and types of antagonism and further discussions of pharmacodynamics in the next video. Please subscribe to this channel for all the upcoming 19 subject videos of MBBS. Thank you very much and bye bye.